Good morning. Good morning. So pleased to be joined by Vice Chair Ted Lieu and DPCC Chair Debbie Dingell and DPCC Co-Chair Lori Trahan. Congress has been in session, as you know, for the last 4 weeks with very little to show for it because the Republican majority refuses to prioritize the needs of the American people. As we prepare to head home to our districts for Memorial Day, House Democrats are focused not on the divisive messaging bills that Speaker Johnson is carrying forward, but on lowering costs and fulfilling the promise of the American dream. That means making housing more affordable so that economic mobility that comes with homeownership is within reach for the next generation. That means defending democracy and our freedom from MAGA extremists who have made it so that young women growing up in America today have fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers. And that means ensuring that our veterans back home have access to healthcare benefits that they've earned. Thanks to House Democrats and President Biden, more than 800,000 veterans have received healthcare because of the PACT Act. We're building a strong economic foundation that will grow the middle class and make life easier for working families. Under President Biden, we've seen incredible, dramatic growth, over 17 million jobs, over 17 million small business applications, and more than 15 million jobs created. House Republicans have shown us tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and wealthy corporations, repealing the $35 monthly cap on insulin and slashing Social Security and Medicare, leaving middle-class families behind. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I'm honored to be joined today by DPCC Chairwoman Debbie Dingell and DPCC Co-Chair Lori Trahan. We know that prices are high. Grocery prices are high, rent prices are high. Some folks may not know if their paychecks are going to make ends meet next month. And that's why when Democrats were in control, we passed a series of laws to reduce prices. We passed the infrastructure law to help mitigate supply chain bottlenecks, to make transportation of goods easier and more efficient, to help lower prices. We passed the Chips and Science Act to bring back high-tech manufacturing and chips. And since chips are in lots of things, this would also help lower prices. We passed a law to require Medicare to negotiate with drug companies to lower prices. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which caps insulin to lower prices. Joe Biden has proposed to reduce junk fees to lower prices. Joe Biden is also working on a proposal to make mortgages more affordable to lower prices. What are Republicans focused on? Well, Louisiana Republicans in their assembly just passed a bill to make it much harder for medication abortion. And nationally, Republicans are so extreme, they want to put in a national abortion ban. So Democrats are putting people over politics and working on lowering prices and creating jobs. And Republicans are focused on taking away reproductive freedom. That is a contrast that we're seeing now and that we're going to see all the way till November. And I want to comment on what Chairman Aguilar said about the PACT Act. As a veteran myself, so pleased. We're getting 1 million claims now through the PACT Act to get veterans the benefits that they deserve. In contrast, the Republican Study Committee only mentions veterans 3 times in their 180-page document. One time to say that they don't think there should be abortions that the Veterans Administration should be doing, one time in a footnote, and then the third time saying veterans should work more to access benefits. So again, you see a clear contrast among the issue of veterans. And now it's my great honor to introduce the great DPCC Chairwoman, Debbie Dingell from Michigan.
Thank you, Ted. And I want to thank the chair and the vice chair for inviting DPCC to be part of today. Let's just be clear. For the past 4 weeks, we've seen nothing but the Republicans putting forth divisive distractions and legislation that's doing nothing to make anybody's life better. And they just keep pitting us all against each other at a time we need to be uniting for a whole lot of issues that impact our economic and national security. Meanwhile, President Biden and Democrats are actually getting things done to make a difference in people's lives. Both of the previous speakers, Pete and Ted, talked about the PACT Act. This week, the PACT Act. This week, we are seeing 2 very real, meaningful announcements of action on Democratic policies. As first is that we passed the the number this week of 1 million veterans who had benefited from the PACT Act. But you know what? Those aren't numbers. One of the veterans that was responsible for pushing this, who quite frankly, I don't know how long it took to get this through. John Dingle had some of the very first hearings when it came through. And he was in tears again with me this week because I saw him. He's on oxygen. He's very active in the VSO groups. But he said, I can die now. My family will be taken care of. And he introduced me. I had a mayor of Wyandotte that had Agent Orange that just kept begging me to get something done. He died before this was done. These aren't numbers. These are people who have been suffering since the Vietnam War of many of these things. Joe Biden got this done. And second, just this morning, the Biden-Harris administration announced that even more student debt will be canceled, bringing the total debt forgiven under the leadership to $167 billion and helping nearly 5 million families breathe easier. This is making a difference in real people's lives, not trying to divide us, not using messaging bills that aren't going to go anywhere, that just exasperate hate. So as we go home for the Memorial Day working period, I know that my colleagues have dozens of events planned. We're going to be working very hard with our veterans to remember those that gave their life to fight for our freedoms, because we never do take our freedoms for granted. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to introduce my co-chair of the DPCC from Massachusetts, Lori Trey.
Well, thank you, Chair Dingle, and thank you, Chair Aguilar and Vice Chair Lieu for hosting us. I think my colleagues have said it already, but House Republicans have proven time and again that the only thing that can unite their fractured Republican conference is bringing messaging bills that have no chance of becoming law to the floor. Earlier this month, Speaker Johnson announced Appliance Week, where instead of passing legislation to protect women's reproductive rights, House Republicans voted to defend stoves and refrigerators that no one tried to take away. They followed that up by unveiling a list of bills to align with Police Week. But rather than pass legislation to increase funding for the COPS program, the most important federal program that local departments rely on, House Republicans passed toothless resolutions designed to score cheap political points. And this week, it's more of the same. House Republicans unveiling a farm bill that cuts $30 billion from food assistance programs, including the largest cuts to SNAP in 3 decades, that the most vulnerable families in our nation need to put food on their table. This is a dangerous proposal, and the fact is it has no chance of becoming law. It's just another exercise in futility. House Democrats are ready to work with our colleagues across the aisle to find compromise on legislation that will improve the lives of hardworking families, just as we did last Congress when we passed the bipartisan infrastructure law to rebuild our roads and bridges and create jobs, the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act to reinvest in American manufacturing, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act to rein in gun violence, and the Bipartisan PACT Act, which, as of this week, you've heard, has approved more than 1 million claims for assistance from veterans across our country who are exposed to burn pits and toxic chemicals during their service. We should be looking to build on that progress, but House Republicans are taking their marching orders from Donald Trump, who opposes anything that could help President Biden in an election year. That's politics at its worst. It's exactly what people hate about Washington. It's why Democrats are taking our message, our commitment to putting people over politics, directly to voters. And we'll do that when we're home next week, and we'll keep doing it every single week between now and November. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. I'll give Vice Chair Ted Lieu all your tough questions today. It feels like that kind of day. So we'll start. Who's up? Who's up first? Scott.
About tomorrow, what do you make of the House committee calling university presidents to testify about anti-Semitism and unrest on campus?
We've seen this before. I think our caucus and the Democrats, House Democrats, are focused on issues that matter, and we feel this is a serious issue treated, unfortunately, in a very unserious way.
I think it's a serious matter.
Republicans are looking to continue to put wedges, in our communities. Now we think that there is plenty of work that college presidents can do and that college campuses can do to ensure that every student has an opportunity to learn free from hate speech. We know that they can enforce their own rules and regulations. The question is, do they need more rules and regulations? And this Republican majority seems to think that's true. We won't stand for anything that seeks to divide our communities and divide our caucus. We think that there is a conversation to be had about anti-Semitism, rising anti-Semitism on college campuses, and we think that there's a more collaborative way to do that. But scoring political points, built for Twitter, is not constructive. Anybody else?
Sure. One of the most helpful things that Republicans can do is to pass a bill by Congresswoman Kathy Manning that actually provides resources to the Department of Education to go ahead and investigate claims of anti-Semitism and other claims of discrimination. And what we now need to do is get resources to these agencies to enforce the law. I urge Republicans to put that bill on the floor.
I'm just going to comment because I happen to be at one of the universities that's we've had a lot of conversation. Every student deserves to be safe. And I think sometimes the kerosene that's being thrown on it from Washington isn't helping people listen to each other, to understand each other. I've met with everybody. I was at Hillel the first week of October 7th. I've been with my Jewish students, but I've also been at the encampment on the campus. They're not anti-Semitic. We have a lot of people that are hurting in this country on both sides. I do. I think that we need for everybody to feel safe, and that we need to stand up to hate wherever we see it. And we are seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, racism, and sexism, and that all of us should be standing up to hate wherever and whenever we see it.
You've heard me say before that our responsibility too is to bring the temperature down on important issues of the day, and I think that's what Debbie's speaking to. Ryan?
Is now the appropriate time to invite Prime Minister Netanyahu to deliver a joint session address to the Congress?
That's not a decision for the four of us, up here. We're focused on, delivering solutions and having important conversations. Look, we respect world leaders when they are in town and when they come and want to have, conversations with us. Prime Minister Netanyahu has spoken to a joint session of Congress in the past. If that's a decision that is made, we'll respect that, but that's not a decision that the four of us have any say in. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today is the first House oversight hearing since last week's markup on the Garland consent that kind of went off the rails. I want to get your thoughts about the exchange that Martin Taylor Greene had with Congresswoman Crockett and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I know that Democrats view themselves as the adults in the rooms and try to focus on the issues at hand. Do you think that viral moments like that distract from the work that you're doing to try to call out some of the hypocrisy on the other side that you always allude to?
Well, I think that anybody who, if people aren't tuned into Congress and they just turn on that, or that is their exposure to the House of Representatives, and then that's unfortunate. It is not an accurate reflection of of discourse that we need here. And I think, we've said this time and time again, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the epitome of chaos and extremism. And it's unfortunate that she decided to take the hearing in that way. But broadly, we need to be, we hope that this is a place where we can have, conversations where we can disagree without being disagreeable. And what happened in that hearing was unfortunate, for those people who were just, kind of tuning in. But let's not gloss over the fact that, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a one-person wrecking crew, and she lives off of that. And that's her brand. Chairman Comer has a responsibility to try to keep hearings under control, and he failed in a huge way. And that's on committee chairs to be able to support that discourse and dialogue. And it was a utter failure that he couldn't control his members.
Thank you. I do want to follow up on that question. With the oversight hearing that did get a lot of attention, you do have one of your members, Congresswoman Crockett, now selling merchandise based off her insults at Congresswoman Green. I mean, do you support that, and do you think that's appropriate for your members to be, essentially fundraising off the chaos of what's going on here?
Look, those committee rooms shouldn't be that chaotic. That's on Chairman Comer to set the tone. But we see that this is just emblematic of House Republicans. Their inability to control that hearing. He's asking, "Oh, I didn't hear anything. What's going on?" I mean, he's turning a blind eye to what is happening. But I'll stick with what I've said before. I mean, it's unfortunate that people who don't have an exposure to Congress tune in national news and they see that is what's happening. It's not a reflection of what the four of us up here. We work with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle from time to time. It's clear that they can't do anything big or significant without our votes. We've made that incredibly clear this Congress. We want to work in a way to get things done and to collaborate where we can. And we're going to continue to do that. Anybody else?
Thank you very much. Your colleagues from House Intelligence Committee yesterday released a letter in which they called for the administration to allow Ukraine to use American weaponry against military targets on Russian territory because they start to get the weaponry. They have restrictions how to use that. Would you support that effort? And if yes, how Congress may help Ukrainians to achieve this goal, to leave this ban?
The most important way that we can help our allies in Ukraine fighting for their freedom is to support them on the military side, and we have done that. The National Security Supplemental is a dramatic benefit to them as they fight for their freedoms. But that coordination and discussion and the military to military coordination will continue. Our expectation is that will continue in addition to the resources that are given to them. But it's important that they have the resources to win this fight and to protect themselves as a democracy in the region. And we're going to continue to ensure that they have those resources. Mike.
3 countries now, Spain, Norway, and Ireland, have recognized the Palestinian state. They say they have done so in order to put pressure on Palestine and Israel to come up with a 2-state solution, which of course President Biden is pushing for as well. Do you think that that's a good strategy for doing it? Do you support the announcement? And should the United States take a step like that? Because Netanyahu does not support the 2-state solution. We've been talking about it for decades, and it hasn't come to fruition. So is that strategy failing? And again, back to the original question, do you support what these 3 countries do?
Look, I support a 2-state solution, and I think that's the overwhelming viewpoint within our caucus. But the best way to do that is to work with the parties in order to solve that. To give the administration the space and the support they need to have those diplomatic conversations to ensure that. One of the most pressing things we can do today is to encourage our friends and allies in Israel to continue to work through a post-war plan that does account for a 2-state solution. That's the position of the Biden-Harris administration, and that's a position that overwhelmingly we support. And so giving them that latitude and that space is what's most important in that time.
Sure. Like Chairman Aguilar said, I also support a 2-state solution. Now, this is just my personal view. Hamas is a genocidal, homicidal terrorist organization. The notion that we or anyone will recognize Hamas is ludicrous. And right now, Hamas is in control of Gaza. So until Hamas is dismantled or radically changes its ways, because its founding charter is to kill all Jews, there's no way any country or anyone should recognize Hamas, which is a designated terrorist organization.
Good
Yes, thank
morning.
you. You talked about Netanyahu. Can you give us a barometer reading in your caucus as to people who would say, yes, let's have the Prime Minister of Israel come to speak? He is a global leader, as you say, and others who say, no way, we're with the ICC.
No, I can't give you a read on that. I haven't had. Yeah,
What's the temperature
yeah.
inside the caucus?
I mean, that's on you guys to have 213 conversations if you want to know where people land on this. It's not a decision that the four of us get to make. I believe all four of Lori may not have been in Congress at the time the Prime Minister spoke last time to a joint session of Congress. When world leaders come and speak to a joint session of Congress, it is an important reflection. We oftentimes, we get reserved seats for those as members of Democratic leadership. We pay our respects. We participate. We listen. That's what we do. But that's not everybody who comes on that House floor should be respectful of the gathering that is happening, whether we are voting or whether someone is speaking to us. That's the overwhelming feeling of Democratic leadership.
At the NRA convention this past weekend, Trump made comments about a potential third presidential term, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on, is he joking? Is it something that you guys are taking seriously?
Every time the former president speaks about these things, we should take him seriously. He has said time and time again, he has told us who he is and what he will do. He told us that he would pack the court to get rid of a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions, and that's exactly what he did. When he wasn't, glitching out and waiting at the NRA conference, he said some pretty terrible things. But the erosion of democratic norms is very clear among the former president. People should hear him. I have heard Liz Cheney speak to that directly as well. She has said, if you allow Donald Trump in the White House again, he will not leave. That's very clear who he is and what he stands for, and the American public should take note.
I want to ask about the crypto bill that's up today. The White House says they oppose it. I understand there's members of your caucus who oppose it. Do you expect a substantial number of Democrats to vote for this legislation?
Thankfully, you didn't define what a substantial number of Democrats is, so I don't have to answer your question. No, you're done. Look. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Before I defer to Vice Chair Ted Lieu, look, this is a very serious issue, and the House Democratic Caucus takes this serious. Having a robust regulatory climate that protects investors and protects people is something we think through, even when there are different ideas on how we get there. I think 6 members of the Financial Services Committee on the Democratic side supported the bill, in committee. I would anticipate that it's a bipartisan vote later today, but I couldn't speak to the numbers, and I don't think it's anything that Whip Clark is whipping.
You did a great job.
Ryan Bennett, USA Today. Hi, Congressman. In the opening of the remarks, you said that you all don't have much to show for the last 4 weeks, and you explained why. Last week, some of your Republican colleagues took time to go support the former President Donald Trump at his trial in New York. The defense rested their case yesterday, so this trial will be coming to an end very soon. What are your initial reactions, I guess, to some people taking the time out of a work week to go support the former president at this trial? And do you foresee it slowing up any legislative business if they go to continue to support him in closing arguments and a verdict?
Yeah, look, it's important first that everybody respects the independent judiciary and whatever decision is arrived to by that jury. But this speaks to the earlier question too, right? House Republicans changed their calendar just so the Red Tie Brigade can go up there and bend a knee to Donald Trump. They moved committee schedules and calendars around just so they could have his back. It's an unfortunate state of where the House Republican Conference is, that even the Speaker has to go to bend a knee to the leader of his party to show his support. Right, this is a litmus test of Donald Trump. Anybody who wants to be in the Veep sweepstakes has to go and bend a knee and to show their support and to stand behind him and to sit through that hearing or to have his back. It's just incredibly sad state of where the House Republican Conference is. But I don't think that this is surprising to any of us. I mean, we've seen this, time and time again. The performative nature of the politics of trying to vie for Donald Trump's love and affection is an overwhelming, viewpoint on the other side of the aisle.
You spoke a little bit about the Louisiana bill yesterday that was advanced to classify abortion pills as controlled substances. Two questions. Do you fear that we can see that replicated in other states? And do you also fear that some of your Republican colleagues here might be inspired to introduce a legislation that's similar to that?
I'll let the vice chair speak too, but the answer to both questions is yes. I mean, look, House Republicans have been very clear that the incubator for these terrible ideas that are assaulting women's reproductive freedom are spreading throughout the country. 6-week bans in Florida, a Louisiana ban. You have President Trump now, talking openly about going after contraception. And then his campaign obviously has to kind of clean it up, at the end and to say that's not what he meant. But again, look, let's trust him when he says that these are things that are on the table. We're going to continue to see that because Republicans overwhelmingly do not trust women to make healthcare decisions for themselves. Period. That's just where the party is. And so we need to trust them when they say that. But I'll defer to the vice chair.
Extreme Republicans want to take away reproductive freedom. They want to meddle in your bedroom with contraceptive bans. And we know this because, in fact, they're introducing bills on these topics. Not only are red states introducing very extreme bills, but when you try to restrict medication abortion nationwide, as conservative groups try and do through the U.S. Supreme Court, that affects purple states. That's going to affect blue states. So this is a full onslaught on reproductive freedom. And again, it's a reminder that the two parties are not the same.
Yeah, I have to speak on this topic because we've seen overwhelmingly the former president mix up mifepristone with contraception. Is that by design, or is that, him trying to have it both ways? But we don't actually trust where his actions are going to be because we still have an overwhelming majority of Republicans who are on a life at conception bill, which would ban not only abortion, but also IVF in this country. And we have to be just vigilant in making sure that people know what is at stake. I do think that this is going to be talked about from now until November and until it's fixed. But women are not going to let the Republican Party turn back the clock on their rights, on their daughters. So we'll be making sure that people understand the clear distinction, which is Democrats believe that this is a woman's freedom to choose with her doctor and that politicians have no business weighing in on that decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Lieu now stay for some time.